Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm gonna be doing something that you guys have been requesting for a long time. I have finally brought on a registered dietitian to the channel.
It's me!
Fearless Fig, Sarah Greenfield is here on the channel today. I actually found her on Yelp after you guys started requesting me to bring on a registered dietitian because there are a ton of things happening right now in the fitness and health industry and a lot of false information being executed to you guys. So I figured why not break all of that down with somebody who actually knows what she's talking about and answer all of your guys' questions. Really make sure that you guys are getting information that could be useful for you guys.
As Jazmine said, I am a registered dietitian and I also practice functional medicine, which is looking at the root cause of what's going on. So instead of treating symptoms or looking at, okay, how do we just change your diet? It's always about what's the core issue, what's really happening, and how do we correct that through balancing out nutrition, sometimes supplements, and just making the body be able to be in balance again.
She posted on her Instagram a photo as an example that really things can come from within, and it was a girl who was having severe eczema on her hand, and she'd been trying all types of different topicals and different treatments.
So it's been like a year in the making, and it was just getting worse and worse. It would get better, and then it would come back again. So she wasn't going after the root cause of what was really going on.
Yeah, so they finally made some changes to her diet, and literally, I'll put the picture on the screen, her eczema has just cleared up. It's insane. How did you get into being a dietitian? What made you realize that this is the field of work that you wanted to get into?
I always kind of grew up with an awareness of healthy food, so I knew from a very young age that the way I was eating was kind of different than other people. Because I was like, I'd bring my lunch and I'd have like carrot sticks and someone would have like a chocolate pudding, and I was like, I want that pudding. I'm gonna be like eating a carrot. So I had that awareness and I was like, oh, okay, that's different. That's kind of like where it started. And then when I went to school, I took a physiology class and I was like, oh my God, I can learn about how the things that we eat are actually processed in the body. And I was like, that's really cool.
You were fascinated by it.
And I always like cooking, and then they're like, you know, there's something you can do called nutrition, which is a combination of the physiology of the body and how food interacts with that, and also food. And I was like, sold.
Perfect.
That's what I wanted. Sign me up for that in every way, shape, and form.
Today, guys, we're gonna take a different approach because generally I do an interview style, but I think the most optimal way to put out this video is to just ask her your guys' questions. I have someone who's super knowledgeable and experienced here who can just answer them. The first question,
I'm very excited.
Good. Okay, good. First question comes from the Make the Move with Maggie, and she says, what are her thoughts on intermittent fasting versus small meals throughout the day?
Good question. It depends. I always look at people individually. And I think for something like that, it depends on what your goals are. Intermittent fasting can be great as long as you don't have any type of hormone imbalances. And I mention that because I do personally work with a lot of women who are gaining weight, they're working out harder, they're eating less, and they're like, I don't understand what's happening. My body's all over the place. So that's a hormonal imbalance. That's kind of upping your cortisol and stressing out your body. And now you're asking it to do things and it's like, I can't, I'm totally stressed out. If you're in that kind of stressed out space, I would not say intermittent fasting is best for you. You want to kind of rebalance your body, and then you can start to play around with food timing. Because what happens when we eat consistently, we're balancing out our insulin, we're balancing out our hormones. I always say, like, let's start with a really strong foundation, and then you can kind of play around with it a little bit more.
What's a way to find out if you do have a hormonal imbalance?
You can get blood testing. You can get an actual hormone test to see, do you have high levels of androgens or like testosterone, or is your estrogen okay, or progesterone? Sometimes we can see that out of whack in women. Because, you know, we are emotional, hormonal. That's something that just gets out of whack with us. But that's a really good way in. Intermittent fasting isn't bad. 12-hour fasts, I think, are great. I think that's a good, like, standard. That would be, you know, stopping eating at 7 p.m., eating again at 7 a.m., which isn't too extreme for most people. But getting into, like, the 16-hour fast. We don't know if you already have a hormone imbalance, if that's going to kind of push it into a new level, And then there's something in there too about eating small meals throughout the day, which I think that one is great as long as you don't have digestive issues. So we're always kind of playing around with like, all right, what does your body need? And that's where nutrition can become really specialized, and that's why it's really hard. That's why there are so many questions, because people will be like, oh, I went on this, you know, keto intermittent fasting thing and I feel amazing.
There's a lot of questions about keto too.
And people feel great, but then other people are like, well, I tried it and I felt like crap. Because our bodies are totally totally different. The meals throughout the day is great as long as you're not bloated with digestive issues, because then you actually need to give yourself some space to digest and clear things out.
Okay, Hannah Chris says, how does keto affect someone long term? I've seen mixed opinions about it.
I guess all of my responses are all going to be like on a personalized way, like depending on you. Long term for keto, if you have certain genetic variants, or there's something called ApoE or ApoB. It's a genetic variant that just kind of shows that your body has a little bit harder time processing fat.
Okay.
So if you have that genetic variant, keto is not going to be a good diet for you, because you're going to see your cholesterol shoot up once you're on keto.
Gotcha.
Because your body's not able to process fat as efficiently. Long term, it really, depends. If you can stay on this diet, because it's very restrictive, it's very hard to stay in ketosis. The whole goal with the ketogenic diet is to use another form of energy for fuel. You're switching from using carbohydrates and glucose for fuel into using ketones or fat for fuel. And that's the whole thing. Like when you're in ketosis, you're burning fat. And that's why people are like, that's where we want to be. This is great. Like it's a really even burn. It's a really even energy. And some people do really well on it long term. Some people do not, just because it's so restrictive. And I also wonder too, like people that are in it long term, are they still as restrictive with their carbs? They might not be, because I think there's a way to kind of do like a modified keto, or there's another one where you're just bringing in more vegetables, because I'm always thinking about the gut. Like I actually did mention my obsession with poop.
Oh, please. Oh, yes.
I'm a dietitian, but really my love is poop. Because listen, we all poop.
We all do.
Just hard fact.
Let's get that out.
Let's
get that out of the way now.
Our dogs poop. Like we pick up our, like we're very involved with our dogs poop. See, like, and you're looking, you're like, oh, there's where my underwear went.
Oh, did you eat some of my hair today?
Dreamer. Yes. So like we're very connected with our dogs poop, but we also need to be connected with our own poop. And I'm not saying like we're picking it up and like breaking it up, but it's a really good insight into our body, and it lets us know, are things functioning? Is everything going okay? Are we breaking our foods down? You can see that in your food. We just want to be connected to that. And so back to keto, what I always think about, if you are significantly restricting the amount of carbs you're eating, you're going to be taking out a big chunk of fiber in your diet. So when I see people really extreme on keto, they're like, I can't eat that vegetable. I can't eat a tomato and an onion because that's going to put my carbs over the limit. And I'm like, no. Because you think about your gut and your microbiome, and that's the stuff that you need to feed your microbiome. So when you go into extreme ketosis for a long period of time, you're shifting the makeup of your gut and the type of bacteria you have, which long term could, we don't even know the full effect long term of keto. If you think about like historically, or like when we were cavemen, we would go into ketosis for periods of time when we just didn't have access to certain foods, but we would also cycle out of it. I usually recommend, if someone wants to go into ketosis and do that, to play around with cycling. And just kind of going up and down with it, so that you're giving your body at least some good microbiome food. Like we want to feed our guts. We want to just always remember, always think about your poop.
Always. Your poop is very important. Serena Sharma says, what are the top foods you recommend having on a diet?
So I always think about fat, fiber, and protein, like right off the bat, and thinking about it at each meal. Are you getting a good source of fat, fiber, protein? So what that looks like is your carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, so things like sweet potatoes and squash and brown rice and quinoa, things like that. You want to get a good source of lean protein, whether you're vegan or eating meat. You can kind of look at, tofu, not every day. Salmon's really great. And then thinking about how many different types of whole foods can you get in your diet. Produce like brown rice, black rice, red rice, green apples, red apples, yellow apples. Every time you can get more diversity in your diet, you're feeding your microbiome in a new way. Always thinking about, okay, fat, fiber, protein, and going through that and being like, do I have a good source of all those things? So fat, like avocado, walnut, olives. I love snacking on olives. That's like one of my favorite snacks.
I hate olives.
I love them. They're so good, and they're filling. So it's like you're not eating, like a bucket of olives. You can have like 10 olives and you're like, cool, my hunger is at bay. I'm not going to kill someone. They're so fatty. Ooh, fermented foods too. I want to throw that in. So that's something we don't have a lot of in our current culture and our diet. We don't have a lot of exposure to bacteria, which is good because bacteria can make us sick, but also we need it to stay healthy. Sauerkraut and kimchi and kombucha is a big one that people are
kombucha is
drinking.
becoming really popular here.
It's good, but look for low sugar. So some of that stuff can have like 12, 15 grams of sugar in it. So like that's the one caveat, just to like be aware.
Avoid those ones. How to get into intuitive eating after dealing with the disordered eating for many years.
Mindset is a huge part of food, and relating to your food is something that we have to be in a good relationship with. Because because food is not like alcohol or drugs. It's not something that we can separate from our day-to-day. It's something we have to say, all right, what is going on here? What is my relationship to food? So I think really one of the biggest things that I like to talk about and think about is just creating that awareness and finding out, all right, what are these habits that you have in place that are not maybe making you feel so good, or that you know are like, okay, this is something I want to work on.
Yeah.
And then giving yourself that space to say, why am I doing this?
For sure.
And instead of what I see a lot of times is going into like a shame cycle and being like, oh, I did it again. I can't believe I did this. Here I am. I ate all the ice cream I didn't want to. So if you can give yourself a little bit of space to say, okay, why did I do that? Did I do that because maybe I didn't eat a balanced breakfast? And instead of making it about like, you're bad and you're wrong, but you put something constructive to it, saying like, okay, I did this. I'm here back in this cycle of what I don't want to do. Instead of shaming myself, how do I say, moving forward, what could I have done differently?
So backtrack and reviewing basically the choices that you had earlier, or maybe like what led you to that.
Yeah,
to that
and then
point.
It's not about you being a bad person.
Right.
Because we all do it.
Yeah,
we
of course.
all have, like food, there's a lot of addictive elements of food.
Yeah.
So like we want to eat it, we want to interact with it, it like lights up our brain in a very significant way. So it's really just about being kind to yourself in that process while you're going through, okay, how can I make this shift? It's not like I meet with someone as a dietitian and I'm like, here's what you're gonna eat and this is what you're gonna do, and like here's your schedule, and they're like, okay, great, and they go and they do it. It's like, no, people are constantly looking at their diet, constantly looking at their emotional health around their food, which is huge. And being kind to yourself. If you can step into this saying like, all right, I know that if I make a shift, it's gonna be uncomfortable. I'm gonna get frustrated, and that's okay. And that's part of the journey. And then making it not about you and that you're a failure and that you've done something wrong. I do that to myself too.
We all do it, And
it's just like, okay, cool, we're here. What can I do differently that's constructive?
I love that.
And sometimes, honestly, it is getting a therapist involved. I tell a lot of my clients, when we're going through a food change or we're looking at something that, I work with people with a lot of imbalances. So there's clearly patterns and habits that have been in place for a long time. And if you can say like, all right, how do we take some of that power away from it and just look at it from a non-emotional perspective and get someone in that can do like mindfulness coaching and things like that. That can be a game changer.
Yeah, collaboratively, especially like you have a team, and so you don't really feel so alone during that process.
Because food can be a symptom of something deeper,
Yeah,
it's an easy way to cope. Yeah. It changes our brain chemistry the same way to drugs. So if you look at, I have this really great picture, I can send it to you.
Yeah.
There's an MRI of a brain, and they took a person's brain when they were doing cocaine, and they looked at a person's brain when they were eating sugar, and the pleasure centers of the brain are like lit up when the person's eating sugar. It's a
oh my god,
it's a drug. You know, food can be a drug. It can have very similar effects to a drug, and we have to separate ourselves from that like willpower conversation where it's like, it's not you, it's the circumstance, it's the it's the emotions. It's just going deeper and going on that journey.
Rosa Mimosa,
I love that.
That's so Rosa cute. Mimosa. She said,
let's be friends.
She said, I'm always giving into my cravings after dieting for a few weeks, which we all do.
Yes.
What is your advice on that?
Same thing that we just talked about. So there is this
literally.
There's this trust issue that happens where we go on this really restrictive diet and we're like, okay, I'm gonna be healthy, I'm making a change, I'm gonna do it. 2019 is my year, or wherever it's like February 1st is my, whatever you do to motivate yourself, amazing. But then what happens is we go into this super restrictive state where we're like, I'm gonna take away every single thing that I do that I consider bad, and I'm just gonna be healthy. And then it's like, great, and it lasts for a couple weeks, and then we just spiral into this like place of like, I can't sustain that. There's a lot of talk, looking at what you're doing and how you're reacting and just being more constructive about it instead of beating yourself up. So just being kind to yourself in this process is critical. And then also looking at, instead of making every single change, what's one change that you can make to establish a healthy habit? And then once that gets kind of ingrained into your day, then you can be like, all right, cool, that feels really good. What do I do next? A place where I usually like to start is like with breakfast. Done. Look at your breakfast. Do you have fiber, fat, and protein in your breakfast?
Just like what you were talking about.
And get into the habit of starting your day with really healthy fuel, because that's impacting your hormones.
That's honestly such a huge thing.
That's it.
When I'm doing that, my typical breakfast is usually like a bagel with some cream cheese and some fruit on the side, right? And a protein shake. When I do that, my meals throughout the rest of the day, they're just, I have healthier choices. Now on the days that I wake up and have a bowl of Lucky Charms, it totally, I'm like, I already ate bad. I might as well just go get a burger. Like,
there's your language, the conversation that we have. If we don't realize that our language affects everything that we do and the way that we talk to ourselves impacts every decision we make. And that's why it's not like you have to do a whole makeover. It just create that space for awareness and just be like, oh,
I don't need to do this, or
that's why I did that. You know, even if it's a space where it's like, this morning I had Lucky Charms, and that's why all of a sudden I'm like, you know, my face down in a bag of Cheetos.
Because I feel attacked. Oh my God.
You know, it's
literally me.
And it's not like, oh, I have no willpower, I'm so bad. It's like, oh, but I didn't set myself up for success.
Exactly.
And that's okay, because I can change that tomorrow, or at dinner, or whatever I'm doing next. And then if you do find yourself face down in a bag of Cheetos,
again,
okay, but like enjoy it.
Right.
That's another thing. Like, we're always trying to say like, okay, I know that this is, we term things like bad and good. Don't eat this, don't eat this, don't eat this. And then when we eat it, this is an example I love. If there's like donuts out and then like, you know, like in an office setting, and then you'll see like there's a little knife and people will just like,
oh
eat,
yeah,
like, a little piece, and they'll be like, I'm just gonna have like, yum. But like you're still kind of like sneaking it, you know?
Right,
so
right.
Like, I'm just gonna have this little piece, and then you go back and you're like, I'm just gonna have this little more piece. So then you're like shamefully eating this, and then you end up eating the whole thing, and you don't enjoy a moment of it because you're trying to hide it.
Good point. Yeah, you don't actually get to enjoy the whole donut that you eventually end up eating.
Because you're like, no, just a little, and you're like, okay, back to work, and you miss it.
Yeah.
So forget that. Just take it, eat it, and be present with it, and say, I am going, like, as long as you've gone through the steps of like, okay, why am I doing this? So it's not super reactive.
Of course.
But if you get to a point where you're like, all right, cool, I feel good. I'm not eating out of sadness or boredom or, you know, all of these things. And you're like, you know what? I just really want to eat this.
Yeah.
Eat it.
Eat like the donut.
Donuts are a healthy part of a diet when you're present with it and it's not a reactive
and you're
way
not
of eating.
Binging and stress-induced eating and all of that.
That's a very complex answer to it, like,
but I think it's good. I think people want that though. Gabrielle Wells asked, what are your thoughts on artificial sweeteners?
I typically don't like them.
Okay.
I do like stevia, which is an artificial sweetener, but a lot of like the aspartame and Splenda and things like that, those can kind of trigger us to actually eat more sweets because you're still tasting something sweet and your body is processing it as sweet. So what it can do hormonally is kind of set you up to be digesting something sweet. So now all of a sudden your body's getting ready to eat sweets and it's not happening or it's not getting it, it's just tasting it. So then we end up in this, again, hormone imbalance.
Whoa, I never thought about that.
That's one thing. Another thing too is it's destroying our gut.
Yikes.
So sorry.
Yeah, it's really bad for us.
And even, you know, I know I'll say stevia and then people will be like up in arms about stevia because it is still processed. Monk fruit's another one, that's okay, but like we really want to look at the artificial sweeteners and understand why we're doing it. It's like, is it because we're trying to mask a sugar craving, and then what's kind of deeper underneath that? Like, I really only get really like upset about artificial sweeteners in like diet sodas. That's what I'm like, please don't drink that. That's the one thing where I'm like, they did a thing with teeth where they put teeth in Diet Coke, or maybe it was regular Coke, one of the Cokes, and it literally like rotted it away.
Oh my gosh.
So I always think of, I read a book one time and they called soda Liquid Satan, and I'm like,
that's a good.
I like that.
Yeah.
There's that's like probably the only thing I would ever say like that's just a bad food, because everything else in moderation. But okay, like I'm like diet sodas. Let's just get those out.
Let's just not do that at all.
And they're linking a lot of those artificial sweeteners also to Alzheimer's because they're causing inflammatory responses in the body. So when you go back to root cause and we're looking at, all right, what's going on here that's not necessarily clearly connected? Inflammation is a big one. So like the eczema hands, inflammation in the body. Alzheimer's, inflammation in the body.
That's
Where is it coming
crazy.
from? And it's really coming, I'm not saying it is diet soda, but there is a link between it. So it's like anytime we can clean up our diet and take out anything that's processed or, you know, manufactured and not a real food, it's gonna be a benefit to
for your
our
body. Yeah. Mary Jane Green 03 asked, are mass gainers okay to help build an appetite?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
What I'm thinking is they probably won't necessarily help you build an appetite, because when you're taking something like a weight gainer, it's just so dense that the idea of eating again an hour later or 2 hours later is like, ugh. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's gonna spark your appetite, but it's gonna give you more calories throughout the day. And so when you are looking to gain weight, how can you increase the nutrient density of your food so that you're getting more quality nutrients and higher calorie foods, which can help. But again, it's going to make you full.
And you're not gonna wanna eat as
so
much. So it's helping get the calories in, but is it necessarily gonna build your appetite? Maybe long term, right? Because as you start to eat more, your appetite starts to get stronger.
Yeah, and also sometimes with liquids, it's a little bit easier. So if you're mixing that up into like a smoothie or a drink, it's a little bit easier to sip on something throughout the day than it is to like sit down and like, oh God, I have to eat that.
Yeah.
Like, drinking it's a little bit easier way to get the calories.
Right. Casey Grant said, thoughts/science to debunk the celery juice trend sweeping Instagram. I don't even know about this.
Oh
have
God.
you heard about this? What is this?
It's literally everywhere. The celery juice one is really fascinating. So basically, there's this guy called the medical medium, and he is saying that celery juice in the morning on an empty stomach is helping people cure all of these things. And it's great. And you know, when you take a step back and you look at what people are doing that is extreme or negative, this one's not any of those. If you're gonna start the day with celery juice, awesome. It's great. I mean, juicing vegetables, I'm not a big fan of juicing fruits, but juicing vegetables is a really good way to get nutrients into your body and to allow it to absorb because there's no fiber. So fiber is really critical for going to the bathroom and moving things through your GI tract, but also it prevents nutrients from being absorbed. Not in a bad way. Like if you look at kale, kale is a very nutrient dense food. It has so much fiber in it that sometimes you're not getting every single nutrient.
Right.
The celery juice can just give your body access to nutrients. It can help with acidity, so it can help calm down any inflammation that you have in your body. So it's not a bad thing. That's like my big takeaway.
Okay.
You can still get probably similar effects from juicing vegetables and starting the day with a vegetable
Not
juice.
just specifically celery.
Yeah, celery, I mean, there are certain compounds in it that's wonderful, and I think if you're doing it, that's great, and if it feels good, that's a healthy way to start the day.
Sure.
So like, I'm all for it. I just wanna caution people that it might not be a cure-all for everything.
Right.
That's the only kind of piece of advice I have. If you're doing it, awesome.
Ralph's I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I'm so sorry, Ralph. What can you do to eat/help IBS? Irritable bowel syndrome.
So how much more time do we have left? Yeah, this is what I think about probably on a daily basis because IBS is a diagnosis that's usually kind of like a grab bag. There's no really specific way to be like, okay, you have IBS, now this is what you do. It's just like, you have IBS. It's a bunch of these symptoms, and that's what we're gonna term it, and like, good luck.
Yeah.
What I look at with IBS is there's two different, like you can kind of be on the more constipated side of things, which is a certain kind of IBS, or the more diarrhea side of things. And those are typically the two kinds of IBS that we see. But what I'm always thinking about is like, why? Why are you having diarrhea? Why are you constipated? So in my mind, I'm going through, okay, obviously yes, what are you eating and how can we give you foods that are going to support your body? You can be sensitive to certain things that most people don't know about. You can be sensitive to broccoli, and that could be what's aggravating your immune system and causing this response and maybe giving diarrhea. Also, your microbiome can be out of whack. That's a huge one that I see with IBS. What type of bacteria do you have in your gut and what's it doing? Do you have an overgrowth of bacteria? This is probably the biggest one I see, the overgrowth of bacteria in the wrong spot. So now you have this imbalance of bacteria, but now it's also up in your small intestines instead of in your large intestines where it should be. And that causes a lot of IBS type symptoms.
Gotcha.
You can also have a yeast overgrowth, which will do it. You can have parasites, which I know people are like, parasites? Oh no, oh my God. But I find a lot of people with parasites. You can get it not just from, I think we associate like living in a certain country, like a third world country. Yes, obviously you get it. No, you can get a parasite. You can get a parasite anywhere. You can get a parasite from like swimming in the ocean. You can get a parasite from eating fruit that hasn't been washed properly.
Right.
You can get it from someone sneezing. Sorry. I'm like, I don't know how deep I want to go into that. IBS is a symptom of something deeper. So that's what I'm like, all right, what's actually going on deeper?
Yeah.
So like I do a lot of stool testing, and I don't actually tell people to like poop in a cup and give it to me. I give them a little kit and they take it home and they go to the bathroom, mail it in, and then we get a whole analysis of their microbiome. And then we can say, oh, maybe this is why you're getting these types of symptoms. And then we can take a step back and say, all right, cool. What do we need to do to rebalance your gut?
Right.
Or we can do a test, look at food sensitivities and say, what do we need to do to change what you're eating? Because right now your body's in a healing crisis and it just needs to repair.
All right, guys, so this video has been so much fun to film. We're actually gonna continue filming a part 2 for you guys right now because I think she has so much information and knowledge to share with you guys that I don't wanna condense this into something short. I really want you guys to get as much information as possible. That way you stop listening to all of the bad information out there and start listening to the actual good information. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to throw it a thumbs up. Obviously, make sure if you're in the LA area, come see Sarah.
Come into the office.
She will talk to you about your poop, about your gut, and about your dietary habits and emotional attachment to diet as well. I'm gonna leave Instagram, location, phone number, all of that to contact you. Can people who are not in the area still be a client?
Yeah, so I do a lot of video consultations and also any of the testing that I do, I can mail out.
Oh, perfect. So basically, if you're not in LA, you still can work
with me.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll leave all of her information down below. I genuinely recommend this, you guys. Clearly listen to all the information she has. If you're considering going to somebody online who doesn't have any certifications, you might as well just go to someone who really does know and has your best interest at heart. So thank you so much for being on the channel. And we're literally gonna continue part 2 right now. But anyway, make sure to thumbs up the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Follow us both on Instagram and comment below below some other videos that you'd want to see with us in the future.
Yes.
And with that said, we'll see you guys in the next video. Besitos. Bye.